Carbon tax. Carbon tax is a fixed fee on carbon emissions. The core policy of carbon tax is reducing and eventually eliminating the use of fossil fuels, whose combustion is destabilizing and destroying our climate. The emergence of carbon tax has impacts on the whole company: procurement, production, warehousing, transportation, profit, and innovation. Procurement. There's a link between carbon tax and optimal ordered quantities and supplier selection. Ordered quantities. Carbon tax drives changes in total costs. Meanwhile, the optimal ordered quantities would be determined with minimized total costs. Supply selection. A green supplier becomes the best choice when carbon tax has been applied widely. They own innovations in order to gain environmental targets. They not only provide innovative products but also helps to reduce carbon emissions. Production. The tax burden raises production costs. Depending on the sector's ability to pass it on to customers, this will cause either an increase in final prices or a drop in operating margins. Warehousing. Positive impacts. Eco-friendly warehousing operation. In order to reduce CO2 levels, firms tend to use green machines and equipment. The machines and equipment run by fossil fuels would be replaced by renewable energy like solar and wind. For example, warehouses in the UK use energy-efficient lighting systems provided by daylight supplements instead of artificial lighting. This helps them to reduce 69% in CO2 emissions compared to a typical warehouse. Appropriate lot size for inventories. Due to carbon tax, there needs to be a larger lot size for inventories. Carbon tax creates changes in total cost due to large ordered quantities. Efficient use of warehouse space. Warehouse needs energy for machines operation and inventory storage. To avoid the waste of energy, firms should consider about warehouse space. They can have more space for storage with minimum energy used. Negative impacts. However, carbon tax drives warehousing operations to become more complex. This is because carbon tax requires more green technologies in warehouse, which leads to complexity in running them and also requires highly qualified employees to use them. The transport sector in Europe is responsible for 20% of GHG emissions. The amount of CO2 depends on the kilometers driven, modes of transport, and load factor. The carbon tax is designed to reward businesses for reducing their individual emissions. Saving costs. As transportation systems become more efficient, they provide economic and social opportunities and benefits, which can, for example, result into an improved load factor. Further, an efficient transportation will reduce costs in many other economic sectors, while inefficient transport will increase these costs. Collaboration. The average truck-trailer loads are less than 60% full, and at least 1 out of 5 trips are made empty. The physical internet or other ways of collaboration between companies will improve the efficiency of load factor and eliminate waste. This means that all companies will act as an individual but will use a shared logistics network that increases the load size and reduce miles traveled by empty trailers. Company investments. Transport companies will be faced with an impact on two fronts: higher costs and reduced waste miles. The highest cost will be due to the higher prices of natural gas. In-depth knowledge. Collaboration through physical internet is a positive way for transport companies to try new ways of reducing carbon emissions. The complexity is a negative element. However, the transport companies will also be required to measure and calculate the emissions used and calculate the cost to reduce them. Profit. Carbon tax sure has an effect on profits of companies worldwide and for the companies to survive in the competition. It must look forward to venturing into more sustainable and environmentally friendly business operations. Innovation. Green technology. Big companies have started to invest in green technology, so they become clean energy industries that stand out from the competition, and consequently, businesses have started to develop more innovative ideas. Energy saving or clean energy. Carbon pricing motivates firms to invest more in energy saving. Induced innovation can influence carbon tax levels and noticeable improvements in terms of energy efficiency. Reduce carbon emissions. Any activities devoted to energy research would have the additional benefit of increasing the amount of clean energy, further achieving a reduction in carbon emissions. Conclusion: carbon tax impacts the supply chain both positively and negatively. It drives direct changes in distribution network and transportation. In order to avoid high carbon tax, companies should invest in innovative technologies and collaborate with green suppliers, leading to the reduction in CO2 emissions. Transportation will become eco-friendly and cost-effective due to carbon tax.